Hello, everyone. It is, we are here for our 6th Chief Delegate meeting. It is November 18th. It's currently 4:46 p.m. Eastern, or I don't know, 21:46 UTC maybe. And yeah, we're going to start with just going over, we don't have much in terms of an agenda. We're just going to review the tracker file briefly to see if there's anything to add. And then we will get into some banter about exciting things in the community. So in terms of the items here, I'll just go through them quickly. Forming other Eden groups, we're not touching it. That's Clarion's taking that one away. Eden media asset ownership. Last time we noticed there was yet a third Eden Twitter account that's going. I noticed the one Eden did get put back up into Pomelo, and they're not trying to represent us. I guess they're just kind of doing their own thing to build community, which is great. But I don't know. We still haven't really got a handle of all our assets yet. So that's okay for now. It's not really hurting anything. Feel free to jump in if anyone wants to add any points to these comments.
Who's responsible for tracking that?
So we had majority of the assets. Lovejoy was going to reach out to Annabella. I think he's still trying. So it's the two of us, Lovejoy and myself. So we will see where we go from here. But there's nothing urgent at this point.
Can we ramp up the urgency? We've wanted this from day one, haven't we?
Yeah.
Well, seems like we're just kicking the can.
Well, there's really only like a few assets we can't seem to get an answer on. The bulk of them we do understand. Like for instance,
YouTube.
Like the YouTube account was actually recently just transferred to Mike Manfredi from me, the Gmail Google account. But yeah, like we need to establish the whole trust thing still. And I think we can start working on that rather than trying to get every single asset under our control. We don't have to wait till we have every single thing accounted for. I just reached a total, I don't know, like how to, I've asked in private, I've asked in public, I've received no response yet. So, and I don't know if it's just because people are too busy or what, but I'm not too concerned about it. I think we should just move forward with what we have. And then this dovetails into the conversation about branding and stuff, which may change the assets entirely, but we can put that aside for now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sufficient with just still trying to, I'm okay with the plan is just try to get the one from Annabella. That's the only one that's missing. I guess it's the Twitter. And even then, what are we going to do with it? Or I think we're individually tweeting a bit. We're not really putting out any joint messaging a whole lot, are we? Yeah.
No, we could be. And I like the idea, like what Dan suggested in that last meeting, of doing kind of like a like an MSIG tweet thingy where we submit like the tweet and then we all just go, yeah, that's good or whatever, and it goes out automatically, or however that bot was conceived. I thought it was kind of a neat idea.
Yeah, well, the trust system, so assets go into the trust, and not every asset needs to be in one big trust. It can be spread across several ones as well, and then staking EOS into the trust to have the privilege as well. While we might not have a whole lot of demand for posting content, it'd be good to at least have that foundation and a platform to build on top of, not only for us but for the next Eden members. Because as time progresses, I don't think this will be an easier thing to do. No. And it's just something that we're going to be throwing into the next chief delegates group list of problems.
Agreed.
Okay, so the plan here is still just to kind of find a way to get a hold of Annabella so we can get that one Twitter.
What other? So we got the YouTube, that's under Mike, and then the Twitter is from Annabella. What other assets did we have?
Chris, do we have it or
the list handy? I don't know where it is.
Oh yeah, right. The spreadsheet. I don't know.
She's there. Okay.
And
I'll be right back, guys. I'll be right back.
And what was it? Randall's responsibility for reaching out to Annabella? Whose job was it to reach out?
It was me. I just haven't received a response. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I could call her. I have her phone number, but I don't want to be harassing people.
Maybe shoot her a tweet. No, text.
Yeah,
Yeah.
text will work.
Escalate to texting. Roger that.
Yeah. And then the phone calls. Then you go to her door.
And threatening voicemails.
With love in my heart.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm okay with that as a path forward for now. For next week, I'll get the list and we can look through the assets and spend more time on it. If everyone's all right with that.
Sounds good.
Okay. EdenOS.org website updates. This may not even be the official site. So last time we discussed at length about doing our own Pomelo pitch for the asset to then raise funds, to then do a request for proposals to maintain the site or to build a new website or whatever we're going to do with it. I did draft a proposal that we could put up there. John, you commented on it, which I think I've resolved those comments. And we just need basically, whether we bother doing this or not, there might be an opportunity maybe to get a donation from other sorts to perhaps fill this in. If we don't get funding for this explicitly from Pomelo, there might be other opportunities to try to get some funding. But
probably.
yeah. Pardon?
I was gonna say I'd probably put some money into it if need be.
Yeah, I could too, because I'm not going to be needing to consume
through Pomelo or just directly.
Chief Delegate.
Yeah,
I think I don't know how well it would work for us to put it into Pomelo because it's kind of our pitch. There's like gray area there. I don't know that I want to trifle with that, but if the Pomelo pitch was not enough, or the Pomelo pitch didn't happen, which I don't know why it wouldn't, but it's a possibility. I would be willing to put some of my budget into making sure that the website is in a good place. And like Chris said, he probably would too. So,
yeah, I would too.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Should we just band together and just get it done ourselves instead of doing a Pomelo pitch?
Might be a good way. If on Pomelo might be a good way to let other people chip in as well.
Yeah, I think Pomelo was sitting with Randall. He was going to do it through EOS support and kind of run it through that org. So maybe we can just coax him to, because all the work is done. You just got to copy paste it in there.
Yeah, that sounds good. Then we pick up the slack.
Cool. So the Pomelo pitch goes up. We have a little bit of funding from Pomelo and a little bit of funding from the chief delegates. What about the RFP system? How do people put in their proposals?
I'll do like a Google Doc probably. So I'll create like once Pomelo ends and we have an amount of money that's established, then we'll know the budget we're working with. And then I'll put up a Google Doc that we'll just leave it to the Eden members group and they can submit their proposals. Give them a couple of weeks to do that. And then we look over those as chief delegates and pick someone to receive the reward or the award to do the job.
So the RFP goes up after Pomelo?
Yeah.
Potentially do it in parallel, or
Because
I thought the idea is that they get the RFP up in like 2 weeks. So we discussed it last week. So it'll be like a week from now. Wasn't that the original ETA?
Oh yeah, sure. I could do that too. It's just, yeah, that's right. And then we said the budget would change. So if you submit an RFP, you just you might have to be willing to be flexible on your requested funds because there isn't a set amount because we won't know until after Pomelo's done.
On the other hand, we could come up with a set amount that we are collectively committed to reaching
A minimum.
above and beyond
Yeah.
the Pomelo, and then just say that's the target and that's what the budget is. Then if we get
Yep.
more than that, we can whatever, we can throw more at it. Translations and stuff.
yes.
That works.
Cool. So
I can
we'll
take
have
that. Yeah, I'll get on it right away.
Okay, cool. So we'll have it up in a week then?
Yes, sir.
So
Randall said he's coming back in a minute.
Randall, are you here?
I think he had to step away for a second.
He's
All
a
right.
busy doctor.
We'll get
We'll,
that.
yeah, we'll need to go back and remind him of the, hey man, put this up on Pomelo for us.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Next one, Eden Bylaws. Although I'd like to type this out so my notes are done. So we're going to put up a Pomelo pitch, Randall and Chris to do RFP form ASAP. There. That covers it. Bylaws. I don't think we're doing anything necessarily. We did have last time we talked about how there might be the head chief delegate could have veto power over group decisions. I don't know if we've gotten any more clarity on how exactly that's to be implemented. I don't think we have, because we haven't had a follow-up conversation. So I don't think we have any movement there, unless anyone else has anything to add.
Yeah, but maybe we should have get a follow-up conversation on the books with Dan. It seems like and then come up with another round of questions, because I feel like we could easily spend another bit of time getting clarity on some of those details.
Yeah, agreed.
I can ping Dan and Mike and see if we can get something going.
Okay. Works for me. Anybody else, anything to add? Very good. Shared Eden Chief Delegate EOS account. We're going to create our own. We're not going to use the Eden one. This one we didn't get it. I didn't put a note in from last week either. So this one's 2 weeks out.
Yeah. If we want one, we can create our own. Do we want one right now, or should we just bench that?
Maybe the Pomelo funds could go into this directly if we set it up in time.
I don't know if they'll do that, because I don't know. Yeah, maybe, because Randall just has to do KYC, but then it can still go into this account.
Yeah, it could directly go there. And I think there's a permission on the Genesis.Eden account that we could probably just associate this to, and then it would inherit those permissions. I think we're all on a permission on the Genesis.Eden account. It's called like minor something. It's either that or we can just copy our account names. Like, doesn't matter to me. But,
what account names or account keys?
either. I am not the best when it comes to MSIG permissions on the network.
Would Anchor help, facilitate the named ID, or would that create more problems than what it's worth? And would keys be easier?
The keys situation only impacts being able to log into things with permissions like that. So I don't imagine we're going to want to log into a DApp of some kind with this permission, so it shouldn't be a problem. And I imagine we'll just use the on-chain MSIG system to approve things. And then we could all just share a link to blocks or something. And then when you're logged in, you just hit approve if you want to approve it. That's the kind of the flow that at least I go through when I'm being a block producer signing MSIGs.
Cool. So just create an account that just uses named permissions for.
Yeah. And maybe we give the owner permission to the Genesis account, Genesis Eden account or something. It could be used in the future. We could leave potential budgets to the next delegates if we chose to do so. I don't know. It depends on whether we want it to be an account for us 6 specifically, or if we want it to be something used into the future for other chief delegate groups.
Future sounds better, because especially if it's going to contain these funds, say we don't spend all the funds from this Pomelo pitch for the website, we'd want to hand that to the next set of chief delegates.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. I like
Cool.
continuity.
So owner is Genesis.Eden, and then active would just be sitting delegates, and which would be us for now.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe we want to talk to the Clarion team about any recommendations they have for permissions to the Genesis account. Like there's a bunch of permissions on the Genesis account that maybe some are better than others, or I don't know.
I'll add us the owner as well, and then Genesis has full control.
True.
And then if we need a bailout, we can do so.
Genesis
ourselves.
has like a weight of 6, and we all have a weight of 1. Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay, John, you're going to take that away?
What do we have a name that you want for the account?
Oh.
Chiefy,
Chief Delegates?
Chiefy.
Chiefy.
That's 12 characters, right?
Perfect.
I don't know. I don't think it matters a whole ton. It's more just a accounting object than it is something to promote necessarily.
Yeah.
Best friends is available with an extra F.
Eden Chiefs. If there's enough letters there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, cool. I got that as John, you're working on it. Perfect.
It's 10.
Eden Chief CDs.
You do. Oh, yeah. Or CD
Yeah.
without the S. It's 12. Well, that doesn't make any sense. That's like redundant. Anyway, we'll figure it out. It's not that
Okay.
important.
Okay. Mission statement. Last time we needed more time. Has anyone spent any time on this yet?
I don't know. I feel like it's not worth putting too much effort towards until we get the bylaws. I think the bylaws will help paint that picture as well, like compared to what we've already got as well. So
I agree. Yeah, I think we got a good start. I'm glad we've got this document as far as it is, and I don't feel like we're in a rush to lock anything in place right now, personally.
Okay. There.
It'll
looks
also
nicer.
be good to have for the website once we figure out where the website's going. So
Okay. Works for me. So its list is sufficient for now. We need input. New bylaws. Definitely need it for the website. Which may come before the bylaws, so then we'll just have to suck it up and maybe pick something that'll give us a fire. Okay, Eden as a DAC DAO. Last time we sort of took the feedback from Clarion team, and a trust is the way to go in terms of resolving asset ownership. The question, I think we were now waiting also more feedback from the Clarion team as to how we should consider setting up that trust. Sound about right?
Those trusts.
Yes.
yeah, I think it should be Eden as a legally recognized company or whatever it might be, but we can already see ourselves as a DAC or a DAO.
yeah, and I still think that's something we should pursue in some way that the 6 of us can cooperate in some sort of structure, because right now the reality is we're all just individuals acting as ourselves, like there's no real shared anything. This account that we're going to set up will be the first shared thing we're doing, and that's really just an MSIG. You could consider it a DAO or a DAC or something, but just for
Well, I
us
think-
to enter. Yep.
Well, I mean, the only solution I've been able to come up with is the one that's, Dan tossed out there, which is a joint venture. So if we all have our own companies, then we just form a joint venture. And it's
Yeah.
fairly trivial. And allows us to act as a united front, sort of, and then dissolve it whenever we want.
And I guess
and it doesn't. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I guess the dissolving of it is what I don't necessarily agree with. Again, continuity, I think it would be valuable if there was something existing and ready for the next group of delegates to just assume control over. Otherwise, they're going to have to jump through all these hoops, figure out how to set up their own joint venture and fight through the same stuff we're fighting through right now. So
I mean,
I don't
that's
know.
why I was advocating to form like a cooperative or something like that would hold us all, but that was kind of pretty well shot down. I mean, you're right that the chief delegates ourselves, we could form an entity, but we can't. So wait, are you suggesting if we form a legal entity and then we could just like step out of it and then let other people step into it?
Yeah.
I thought wasn't
but
that
it wouldn't necessarily speak on behalf of.
It's not for Eden as a whole. It's for the chief delegates just to use as a legal entity when they need one. I mean, that's what I kind of envision the foundation is as well. The EOS Network Foundation. It's not Eve's company. I imagine that in the future, other people will be leading that. It is a recognized, it's a part of like a system that other people can step into and manage. I worked for a not-for-profit for quite a while, and the board and the leadership of the not-for-profit changed. Like I worked there for maybe 5 years and it changed like 3 times. And it was always new people, with their own vision, driving the not-for-profit forward and however they saw fit. It was in the manufacturing industry, so it's completely different subject, but it was, new leader coming in, and this is where we need to take it. This is where the technology is going, and this is how we can help facilitate this industry to move forward. So it kind of fits, I feel like, what with our mission is as chief delegates for EOS. We're serving our term here, and right now we're all just doing it as individuals. But if there was something that existed that was here for us, that'd probably make our job a little easier, and we wouldn't be having all of these conversations. Randall wouldn't be having to do the Pomelo pitch on his own. We could contract with a website developer. The trusts would be bound to this group, to the entity. Shouldn't say group, but
no, I don't think they could be, because that's like the entire reason for having the trust is to not have them like downwind of a legal entity that can be ordered by a court of law to, the thing is we need to not implicate the entire community in whatever our actions are or its assets. So but I hadn't really, I guess I kind of stopped thinking about that, but I think you are right. We could just form a simple company and act as a united front within that. And then, but I don't know, like I'm still confused about where the line is with respect to not operating on behalf of Eden.
and I think that's
Just so we can spend our funds. And what are you gonna say, John?
Can we wait till that conversation with Dan again? Because this can easily turn into a conversation of 3 hours, big Telegram chat, and then Dan puts us in a place. So.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
We can kind
but
of
I do think it's, I guess for the reasons you highlighted, though, it is kind of a priority to get sorted out. And I mean, in the meanwhile, I've just kind of decided to act with my funds and just take the risk and do what I got to do, and then deal with the consequences later. But
I was gonna say, this doesn't change that. This doesn't get rid of our individual budgets or individual responsibilities with those. This would just be in addition to that as an optional layer to participate in when needed. So it's not to rule each of us as individuals or anyone in Eden realistically.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, we could, I think during the other conversations we're likely to lead into later, there will be points where I might jump in and be like, see, this is where an entity would greatly benefit us. But I think we need to have more conversations in general about that. to figure out the correct direction to go.
Possibly
I think-
outside of this weekly meeting.
Yeah.
I think a guide, yeah, and a bit of research is on like what options are available. But then I think that any legally, registered companies or whatever should be more ephemeral. And they're sort of just spun up to do the one purpose, and they don't sort of last too long. And they're not passed over to chief delegates. And if the next chief delegates, need one, then they can, go to the guide, reference the handbook on navigating it, and then sort of go from there. Perhaps.
Yeah, that's kind of where I thought we were at. It's like more pass on the knowledge of how to do this efficiently, so that, but on top of just creating a knowledge base that people can reference for the future when they come into this role, maybe even, I don't know, like setting aside a fund for, that's where it gets weird though, but I mean, that's something we could put in trusts too. We could establish a chief delegate trust that can only be used for like legal counsel and corporate formation for future chief delegates or something like that. But
I also think we should only use a company for what we can't already achieve without a smart contract, and otherwise it sort of undermines our independence if we're leaning on companies for things that we can do independently through use of a smart contract and just get enough programming. On top of that, another thing is that if we do create a company that we did want to pass on as a vehicle that other chief delegates can use, in theory we can just say, hey, this is optional, but I don't know, I think in practice something will happen that'll make the company, that'll make the Eden Chief Delegate group binded to the company for some reason. Something got set up by one chief delegate group, and now it's no longer such an optional thing. And for whatever reason, they're sort of binded to it. And yeah, we've kind of dug ourselves into that hole as well. Whereas if companies are a bit more ephemeral, plus law changes all the time. So like one country in one jurisdiction, makes sense, but next year Dubai is going to be the best option for DAOs, and then after that it's going to be Gibraltar or whatever it might be. So yeah, I think ephemeral would be the way to go.
Possibly like back to joint ventures, it could be possible to set up a joint venture that members can come in and out of, and it doesn't have to disappear, but it could be dissolved, but there's no reason a joint venture needs to end. So theoretically, you could just set up a joint venture that entities could enter into or leave as it'd be like a way of organizing a board, essentially, or the chief delegate, But those individuals would need to have their own companies, or I guess you could probably have sole proprietors in a joint venture, possibly. I'm not really sure, but
Not sure either. I guess when I'm looking at things like the website, for example, like let's say we hire an agency we're happy with to work on this website for the remainder of our term, that would be with one of us individually. You can't arrange a contract with a joint venture like that. But if an entity did exist, they could be contracted with the entity, this development firm could be. And then when the next chief delegates come in, they could choose to continue that agreement using the entity to keep that firm on board to continue to perform that action, or they could choose to use the entity to hire another firm to maintain that, or maybe they're not going to do anything at all. But that's the sort of continuity that some sort of persistent entity would provide, as opposed to us, like Randall or me or somebody contracting with the developer to build this thing. And then when we're all gone and the next group comes in, that firm now has to contract with somebody else's individual entity, and it's just.
Well, it can still be achieved with like company as a service. So we only have to get one decent legal-minded person in Eden, and they can say, hey, if you need a company to do whatever, I can hand out, here's my admin services, and you can use my company as a vehicle for that, same way we're sort of using Randall's company as a vehicle for that. Randall's works, but again, he's not in the business of making this happen all the time, so there's only so many requests that we can make of Randall's company before it becomes, too much effort for him and too much, time cost to him.
Right.
But
And the same
yeah,
could be true about the as a service company you were talking about. They may choose to be done.
Yeah, but if there's a market for it, and as Eden grows and we get more people, then surely someone will come up with it, put their name against it,
And then ask for us individually for donations to fund the stuff that they want to see done for Eden. Like, it just gets murky.
Well, it will just be administration, won't it? So they'll be like, okay, well, if you want a company that helps talk to this website, for the website agency, then it'll be, I don't know, $500 for registration. Then I'll charge $200 for handling invoices or whatever the hell it might be, and then we just use them for that. And then Eden itself is not bogged down. The company is set up for a very particular purpose, and then the next chief delegates can use choose to use the same service, the same company, or again find someone else to do the job.
Yeah, until that, it doesn't seem like that great of a model. Just because there's no certainty in it. Like, there's no way I would choose to be that company that provides that service.
Why wouldn't you choose to be that company?
Because there's no guarantee that there's business for it. Like, if the delegates could just be like, no, we're gonna choose a different company.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't, I don't know, sink thousands of dollars into the image and stuff like that. But again, it'd be more like a bit like what I'm offering to do with a website. Like, I'm not a web agency, but then I'll create the website. So again, if I'm a full-time lawyer or something in the real world, and then I know how to spin up companies and stuff like that, I can do that on the side. Then again, it'll just be the extra money there. So it's essentially the profile would be some sort of like legal person, guru or whatever that's familiar with sort of blockchain stuff and knows how to navigate the waters.
It's true. We are just depending on something that doesn't exist for that.
Well,
whereas we could just go create a legal entity and do
well,
this.
at the moment we got a poor man's version of it with Randall. And then and again, if we need another one, say if Randall doesn't want to do it anymore, we'll say, well, shit, Lovejoy, we really want one, and we'll give you this amount of money to do it, and then maybe Lovejoy take it on if the money's right, or I'll take it on. If the money's right, anyone will do anything really, because then you can just delegate it to some other person to get it done. But then at least it keeps things ephemeral, and then again, there's no Eden getting bogged down with a particular company either. But then again, I don't know, I feel like we should know the scope a bit better rather than sort of general purpose company, which is like, what exactly, which exact action do we need? Because some actions we can get away without an agency, and we can do it completely internally. As we get more members, if we need a web thing, we'll go, okay, well, before we even talk about companies, can we just get this done by doing an ESIO token transfer to old mate, and he'll get it done, and there's no agency and companies and stuff needed.
Cool. I'm leaning joint venture. We'll talk more.
Yeah. I'm not convinced, but I might be.
Yeah, we'll see what Dan says.
I'm super open to the consensus here. I'm not enough of an expert on these things, so I'm easily convinced in whatever direction the majority of you five want to do, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar. The only kind of thought I'm having is whenever you make a decision, like how far do you do it in advance, like predicting what's going to happen in advance for the thing that you need? It kind of seems like we can get what do we need? We need funding. We can get it done without a separate entity. we have alternatives. They're kind of like ugly alternatives, but they get the job done. Like, to me, it'd be more appropriate to set up a more formal entity when we like really actually need it, and it's like very apparent that we need it. It just doesn't feel like that right now. But
one
I'm not an
wild
expert.
card. That's a good point, Jesse, because one wild card is that we don't know the ambitions of Helios yet. And maybe they'll throw a little bit of money towards the chief delegates to use as like this core spend, right? We need core funding outside of an election as an organization that we can use for these assets, right? So maybe that's something that Helios might be able to do. 10, 20 grand to go a long way to providing a base to at least operate these base assets. So there's a few options out there that might solve this without the need of a legal entity, Jesse. Good point.
Here's the thing though, is we've already been offered that by the foundation. They said, what do you need monetarily wise to make this a success? And we have not answered because we don't know what we need. And we have not answered because we don't have a good way to take that money in. It's not going to be any different with Helios. They're also going to be like, okay, which one of you individuals is going to take this money in and assume that burden? Because we don't have an entity shared between us. We are not a collective of people right now. We are individuals.
Right, but Aaron, what I'm suggesting is that we get a number first. We make sure that it's apparent that they're willing to donate to us X number. Then when it's apparent, then we put in the effort to set up the entity.
Plus,
That's generally not how people give money away. They want you to put the effort in to explain why you need the money and then justify why they're giving you the money. People aren't going to come to us and be like, hey, I'm going to give you 20 grand. What do you want to do with it? That isn't.
No, I'm not suggesting that we I'm not suggesting that we receive the money. Like we get intent of receiving the money.
We have.
And then we set up the entity and then receive the money.
Okay. We have two entities now, one potential and one that already has that we're in this position for.
Yeah.
But again,
I don't consider that intent. I haven't seen concrete intent, at least from my point of view.
Our response, I thought our response to Eve was to get more information to reply and say, well, what do you mean by this? Did we get that?
We should definitely set up that meeting.
Yeah.
Wasn't that part
where
of
I'm
that?
at.
Yeah, we'll set up the meeting, and then based on the information, then we can make a decision. But I don't know, the message was a bit of a breadcrumb of information. It didn't really give us too much info as to what exactly you meant and what kind of numbers are we talking, kind of thing.
I agree.
Well, it hasn't exactly been the right week to have that discussion, and unfortunately, because
It has.
Yeah, that's true too.
Eve's a little busy right now. Not that this is not an important conversation to have, but it may need to wait until things settle down a little bit.
So I think our takeaway on this long discussion of DAC DAO, whatever, legal entity, I guess is probably the best way to put it, because we have no idea what it means, is we should have conversations with 3 different people at this point. We talked about talking to Dan again, talked about talking to Eve, talking about Helios. So we kind of have 3, like, it would be interesting to know what they all think. Like, we have one of them that's giving us money today. Like, the reason we all are paid is due to the foundation right now. Helios, I can only imagine if they're looking towards public goods, we'll be looking at Eden. Like, we are this grand experiment in making this happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we have some meetings that need to be scheduled. I can handle, I talk to Eve because I'm involved in other foundation stuff, but I can try to set something up with all of us with him. Does that sound okay?
That'd be great.
Does anybody have Dan's ear or Brock's ear that can potentially? I don't have either of them necessarily better than any of you.
We don't want to talk to them all at the same time, do we?
No.
You're talking about one at
individually.
a time. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but we can contact
already,
Mike. Yeah. Mike.
I've already got it on my list to get a meeting with Dan and Mike.
Cool.
So
But I do think we need to come up with like what our well, no, I guess maybe Jesse, you're right that like we need to kind of see what our options are and what their opinions on what we could be. Because I think we're kind of all over the place with what we could do.
So what is the
Can-
meeting with Dan going to do again? I'm sorry.
We want to definitely get into bylaws. Just
Yeah,
thinking
that
on
one's
that.
multiple topics.
And back to legal structure, more insight on what
Should we
minefield to avoid.
should we write down the questions then? Because it seemed like in the meeting he convinced everyone, but now we're not so happy with the answer now.
Yeah, because I thought we agreed that we will set up a trust, right?
Yep.
The trust is a separate issue, though.
Yeah, the
And
trust
then-
is going to
like-
handle assets.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's one.
great.
And number two was if we decide that we want to work together, we can possibly set up an LLC for us, and we can keep it if we want, or we can dissolve it at the end of our term.
Yeah,
it's-
Dan suggested a joint venture.
Maybe
Oh,
we don't.
Yeah,
Maybe we don't need to talk to Dan about the entity situation. Those might be conversations for Helios and the foundation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are the two entities that are potentially going to be giving us money for things. So we need to get clarity from them. Dan's not offering to give us money right now, so he's probably doesn't necessarily care about that.
The other cool thing about the joint venture agreement is that companies like Helios or the ENF could enter into those as,
That's a good
I
point.
use partners in air quotes because it's not a true partnership, but they could enter into that venture.
Mhm.
So it allows us, being relatively small potatoes, to that's kind of the beauty of joint ventures. It's like small companies can access the resources of larger companies and vice versa. So I'm reading about it now, but we'll have to dig into it more.
Okay, very good. So in terms of the splitting of Eve's cookie, we will.
Oh, we just dove into that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's covered. So Aaron's going to set up a call. Too many A's.
Take 'em all.
Cookies. I just got hungry for
All the
cookies.
A's.
Damn it.
So between Eve and the CDs to discuss this.
Do we want to try to set something up with Helios? I know I'm circling
yet.
around Helios right now.
Helios is so it's still not defined.
Yeah.
So I think we're probably better to wait. We'd start with
Okay.
Eve anyway, and then and yeah. Besides, in general, this is something
Yeah.
there's so much going on right now. This probably might not get top of the list for to-dos, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think it'll probably be similar. Like they'll probably have similar concerns when it comes to the structure of this kind of stuff. Both of them are going to be legally recognized entities offering money to potentially this group or the broader Eden group. So I can only imagine they'll both be looking at similar issues, legal issues, and how they do that.
Well, would the concern be the lack of a legal company to give it to, or a lack of a persisting company, though?
Potentially both. I mean, if you look at the foundation specific, actually, if you look at both of them, I shouldn't just say one of them. Those two organizations aren't going to want to just support us. They want to support Eden as this thing that could potentially benefit EOS greatly. So they may have opinions on whether they would like to see something that persists or something that is ephemeral, that just lasts with only us. I can't speak to that.
I agree.
Cool. I'm doing these in alphabetical order,
Sweet.
in case people are wondering.
I always
they've-
win.
Exactly. So individual updates. Aaron, fire away.
On our internal projects, the account creation onboarding stuff, We have a new open source library. Actually, it's not open source. I shouldn't call it that yet, but it will be an open source library that is meant to serve as something a app can drop in to their application that'll facilitate account creation. It'll still be pretty bound to Anchor, which I think I've mentioned kind of every time. Expanding the scope outside of Anchor is still something we need to create some standards for, which might result in this. There's a few little technical things that we're working our way through, but kind of the core idea is really coming together now. So I have a hard time speaking about this one because I've been so busy with meetings like this that I haven't been able to get my hands dirty in this code. So I'm relaying all of this secondhand right now, but I would say that is coming together pretty nicely. We're still onboarding a couple new developers right now to help us with this stuff. I have not touched any of my budget yet, but I have donated a pretty significant amount of my own money to Pomelo. I think I'm going to keep it that way. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to put my budget into Pomelo, but I do want to use it for community initiatives. There's been a lot that's going on, and I'm just kind of sifting through what's relevant to Eden and not bore you all with other things. I think that's about it.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Cool.
Most important point I've taken here is Aaron's hands are too clean.
What did I do? Oh, they're too clean.
You said you wanted to get your hands dirty, so I just
in the
thought that'd
code.
be funny, but no one laughed because no one was watching.
Yeah, I wasn't. Sorry.
I missed it.
Oh, thank you. Okay, no, I've been sidetracked. Eden has the Eden list of deliverables, to-dos, whatever, have taken a back burner over this past week for me. So I really can't speak to much other than I did have a list. We had an open mic, the open mic I left early. That still happened. It's happening on Discord. So that's still happening. I kind of missed what happened though. And I don't know if there's a recording that made it out public from that.
I was there the whole time. I could, there was very low attendance, and me and Joshua just kind of caught up with each other. That was basically it.
Okay. So it still happened. And so to those watching this, come to the Discord Monday at 6. What's the UTC number now? I don't know. I'm still not caught up to the Eastern clock change thing. 2200 UTC, 2100 UTC.
It's 2200 UTC.
2200. Yeah,
2200. Yeah.
2200 UTC, 5 p.m. Eastern. Okay. So come check that out. So that happened. I can't speak to anything else that I've been doing that's useful for Eden, to be honest. So yeah, I'm going to leave mine very blank. Jesse.
Am I on mute? No. Okay. Hey. So we have learned a lot at EOSBs about the current system. We've run into a slew of problems, and I think I'll announce here. So I'm not going to announce this till next week. So anyone watching this will get a inside info on EOSBs. We are doing EOSBs 2.0 incentive model. And the reason why we want to change our incentive model is because of a few reasons. One is that we're relying on penalties to incentivize actions. This is not the best setup. There's other things like the managerial structure of, because each B makes a decision on their lower B's salary. So that requires a lot of tracking and keeping up with all your B's. It's very heavy kind of labor right there. So that's not ideal. There's not really a standardized way.
Who does the tracking? What's the tracking person? Is it the princess?
So princess has workers and workers have scouts. So workers need to decide how much their scouts make. And that requires tracking all of their scouts and keeping up with every single one of them and how they're doing. And it's just a lot of work. And I think there's a better way. And there's a few other problems, and I'll just skip those. So we're changing to a contest bounty model where every piece of work, whether it be writing an article, doing a video, swarms, translations, everything is going to be in the form of a contest with a bounty or a budget attached. And so in this way, we're rewarding work instead of paying salaries up front and then penalizing for lack of work or violating the B code or whatever. So that's kind of the TLDR. We're moving to a contest bounty model. We're hopefully be working with Haifa DAO to make a due, is what they call. We want to do an EOSB's due, and everything's going to be on chain. So that means every piece of work unit that a B does will be on chain and tracked. And so, and that also means that if there's a bounty, anyone, because we're paying for work, the sign up costs are so much lower. You only need to give us your information if you want to get a bounty reward. So that's going to lower the barrier to entry to do marketing work for EOS, the EOS blockchain. And that means anyone in EOS who wants to do marketing work can more realistically participate and drive engagement. And so I'm working on a rough draft, and that's kind of the main update for this week.
In terms of the Haifa do bit, are you going to launch it on Telos since it's live there? Or are you going to kind of just wait till it comes out on EOS?
No, we're EOSBs, so we're going to wait until it comes out on EOS.
Okay.
We are doing, so I had a conversation with Reiki last week. It was a great conversation, and we at least verbally agreed to, we're going to help them, we're going to help Haifa DAO in the EOS world, making everyone aware of Haifa DAO. And in return, they're going to help us set up our due on EOS. Everything's open source. Reiki had told me that it's a week or two of dev work to get it on EOS. And he told me that he's putting his stuff on Pomelo to see how the reaction would be. What's the sentiment of Haifa DAO on EOS? And so that's why we came up with a tweet today. I donated, or EOSBs donated to Haifa Do. We want to encourage everyone else to do so. They're basically, if you don't know what Haifa is, they've achieved what DAC Factory was trying to, what EOS DAC and DAC Factory were trying to achieve. It's basically one-click DAOs. It's amazing. Chris has a great conversation with them. Any team on EOS should be on their software, whether BPs or DApps or even us chief delegates or Eden. They're 4 years battle tested on EOS.io. They are just a super, super impressive team. We really need them in EOS. So EOSBs is going to be promoting them a lot. That's
awesome. And they're good people. Like, right? Like I'm on their Discord, and you can just tell it's like that community is full of a bunch of really good, seemingly good people who have great intentions. So it's a great project to support.
Yeah, and the first implementation of the Haifa Do is a project called Seeds. These people go around planting trees. Like, these are great people.
Awesome. Okay, great update, Jesse. Thank you. Who is next? Alphabetically speaking, John.
NFTs are still in the works. I got a artist that's making a couple of designs for me. So it's exciting. I'm also working on a web keys feature. I put out a preview of that before and received a bit of counsel from Aaron.
What's it called? Web keys?
Yeah, web keys. Well, no, it's not web. What's it called, Aaron? Session keys? Session keys. I think
tentatively.
I think that's the terminology. I don't know. I've got to get that down pat. I'll maybe reach out to Mike because I think he knows a bit about it too. Session keys. So basically setting up a delegated permission against your EOS account so you can do low value actions like bidding and things like that. without having to go for rank every time, which is cool.
Yeah, it looks really neat.
Yeah, keen to polish it off and get it out there. It's mainly that's it.
Okay, am I correct in saying that session keys saves you from having to sign for every action? Did I get that correct?
Yeah, on Anchor, like you won't have to
Okay.
press the approve button. They'll do the signing in the background.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Before we move on to the next, I just want to compliment John that I saw on Violet Garden that Bancor had decommissioned the thing, and then the next day it was back. So I assumed you did a lot of work on that to get that up. So thank you.
Yeah, it was pretty stressful, but I got it out there.
That looked like an all-nighter there.
Yeah, it wasn't fun.
Okay, yeah, I've also been a little sidetracked this week. Props to Lenny for starting a conversation about getting the delegates all in the same room to have a little chat. I thought that was a really good initiative, and looking forward to getting that going soon.
Did that happen?
No, but it's
oh, good.
No, you didn't miss it. There is a time, let's see here, that was suggested for Saturday at 2000 UTC.
Is this Saturday?
Yeah, I added it to my calendar, and I think it's 3 p.m. Eastern on Saturday.
Yeah, so this coming Saturday.
Okay, excellent.
With some topics to discuss related to Pomelo, delegates, continued interaction.
What time is EST? 3 p.m. EST and UTC?
Would have been an hour before this meeting started.
2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are all probably in the Eden Delegates group, right? So I think you can see it. I can link to that, copy that message link from Lenny. I know there's been just an insane volume of messages and conversation in the community this week, which has had all of us kind of catching up on. It's like I'm like in the kitchen cooking. I'm like reading through Telegram messages, like cooking with one hand. Like I wake up, I'm like reading through Telegram messages. Like I go to sleep, I'm reading through Telegram messages. Oh, Discord messages. And there's a lot of conversation going on right now.
Yeah, there is.
I tried to get Brendan Bloomer to buy a signed copy of the U.S. Constitution. Thought that, and give it to Eden. Thought maybe that lightened the mood a little bit. That auction starts in 50 minutes from now, so who knows. And yeah, other than that, still plowing through videos, but I didn't really make much progress on that this week. And yeah, I think I want to add. I think I'm going to take a swing at kind of doing a chief delegate post somewhere. Maybe I'll post on Violet Garden and my thoughts on everything so far. And I think there's some areas of where it's like, now that I'm seeing what the ENF is doing and maybe what Helios is up to and some of the other players in the scene, I'm starting to see more of what Eden's role is in all of this by process of elimination. And I think reflecting on some of the stuff that we can be working on as a community to flex our muscles a little bit more would be valuable. And talking about getting some cohesion and getting the community, kind of putting the community to work a little bit, getting because it's one thing to just give the chief delegates a budget and be like, all right, go ahead and do your best. And it's another thing to have the community united behind that, what those actions are and what's going on, and to have some sort of reciprocal behavior. That's what I feel like I'm missing with this relationship. So I'd like to talk about that. And I think the chief delegate or this big 36 delegate meeting will be a really great opportunity to discuss what that relationship should be like. So I'm keen on exploring that with everybody, but I don't have much else to say that is of substance right now.
A question for Lovejoy.
Yeah.
Do you have an update on what you're doing with your chief delegate funds?
No, I finally just got up the courage to claim those funds, and I'm planning on sticking to like my promise from the election of distributing those funds partially between the various projects represented by the other chief delegates here. Just paying myself for a small amount of time, and then I'll use some of it at my discretion on Pomelo pitches. I think so far is the plan.
Cool.
Okay, excellent. Randall.
So today, your support mainly it was my funds at this time, but we donated to about 31 projects on Pomelo. So that was a great thing. We are supporting the whole community as much as possible. The second thing is I tested a smart contract after the developer who was working with me finished it and successfully worked. So now we can give out rewards hopefully by December. So that brings me to a point about what Jesse was saying from before. So in our case, we have a point system where based on what activity that you are doing will determine how much EOS you get, right? So we are trying to make it in a way that eventually anyone in the community can submit a how-to article. And when they submit the how-to article and we read it, it makes sense, we can validate it, we will approve it, and we will give you some EOS, and then you can claim it at the end of the month. So the smart contract is going to allow for us to do that. And I'm still thinking about how to, automate it eventually in the future. But for now, we will try to do majority of it by approving it manually on the back end. Also, we have made a decision how much we are going to pay the initial EO support members. We've decided that because it's very hard for us to determine how much work each person was doing, this month we will give everyone 25 EOs. So each member will get 25 EOs for helping out with the community. We've seen, or we've helped over 225, I think, or over 225, if I can recall, users this month. Darius showed me the numbers. I cannot really recall it, but I think it was 225, and we have a breakdown of what was done. So far we are helping as many people as possible with wallets, ERC20 tokens, and all that. What else? I think all in all, that's majority of the things. Oh, actually, we started coding dApps ratings. So the goal is for us to have the community rate some of the dApps that we have, and we want to organize majority of the dApps at one place so that the ecosystem knows how many dApps are out there. I think I said the wrong thing. I said DAOs, but I meant dApps. How many dApps are out there, so that people can rate them. They can use them. We can help the people who are actually running these dApps if they need support. And by the way, John, if you need help with anything at all, you can let us know. We will help whoever that's out there that needs support with anything, as long as you can give us the how-to, and we can learn it. Then we can be out there in the community just helping as much as we can, so that we try to make it easier for the developers and all the people who are out there trying to work so hard, tirelessly, to make EOS a success. So our goal is to continue to help the community as much as possible, and anyone who needs help, you can reach out to support. So pretty much so far, that's what we've been doing.
Beautiful. That concludes the more formal portion of our discussion this evening. Now we have open floor. What do we want to talk about?
I was just thinking as you were writing these notes, how cool it would be if there was like a chief delegates section 2, where it's like, here's what we did collectively as chief delegates. But I think we're still in the phases of trying to figure that out. But at some point in the future, having that item there where it's like, all right, what did we accomplish as a collective, as a group, would be cool to show.
Yep.
So not that we can do that now.
No, it's a good idea. Well, and I guess, yeah, one thing I can mention then that would kind of feed into that is right now, this spreadsheet that I keep is just on my personal OneNote that I use, but I'm going to look to migrate that to a Notion page that then any of us could edit. Because the other downside of this is it's dependent upon me to edit this, and that's not the right way to do it. And it also makes it hard to hand this system we're establishing over to the next chief delegates. So I'm going to take it as a to-do to talk to Manfredi and see if I can get us onto the Eden Notion, and then have these notes live there. And then all 6 of us could edit and tweak those. And then I don't have to, we just give that link to anybody. And anytime anybody wants to see what we're doing, they can just look there for the updates, which would be nice for that chief delegate update
Yeah.
too. So
Awesome.
anything else? How's the sentiment? How's the sentiment in EOS these days, fellas? What should we do about that?
Yeah, I'd like to get to that, but I was also thinking, would it make sense? What do y'all think about doing a live stream periodically with all of us, and being able to take questions from the community, and even take other people on if we want, or because I feel like that might be a piece that's missing, is some sort of like back and forth with the chief delegates, as opposed to like passively just receiving this like long-winded, oftentimes painful to watch probably discussions that we're having, especially now with the sentiment being so wild, with so much stuff going on, and a lot of uncertainty.
I like that. We could just do it in Discord and say, come join us. We could probably set the channel so that way everyone but us is muted. And if people want to ask a question or whatever, they could like raise a hand in a chat or something. And then somebody that's moderating could unmute people at times, just to keep it from turning into more of an open mic. Not that that's a bad thing, but I have, even way back when I was involved in Steam, that was a format that they used for open communication. They would get the witnesses, which was their term for block producers, on a call together to have conversations like this, like we're having today. And anyone could join in. And then it was just a matter of like, okay, let's let people in one at a time to either ask a question or pose a topic of discussion. And then it was kind of like it's kind of like you hand a mic to somebody for in the audience of a panel discussion. Like that's the structure. But yeah, we have the open mic, and I know quite a few of us attend those open mics regularly. So we have that format. And so maybe we have a different format for this other thing. I'm open to ideas on that side.
Do you want to do our next meeting at this? Because this time works. And I don't think there's any other conflicting EOS thing that happens at this time. Do you want to try our next meeting live?
Well, I don't want to do the meeting live.
Oh.
Because I want to do more like the panel discussion live personally.
Yeah, they're two separate things, aren't they?
If anything, we would do the meeting and we would have a hard stop where we go live, and we'd have to get all our business concluded by that point, and then switch to like jump in the talk. I don't mind smushing them together, but I don't really want to do this meeting live, because I think we'd lose half our audience by the time we got to the Q&A part,
That's true. I don't think separating them would probably be good too. Just because these can get long, we could be a little brain dead from this thing. And if we came into this other thing a
Mhm.
little bit more fresh. Like maybe it's on like this is Thursday. Maybe if we did it on a Wednesday or a Friday
weekend.
or a weekend. Yeah, I'm not opposed to a weekend.
Call it
And-
drinks with delegates.
There we go. And it could be reoccurring if it works out. Like I'm not opposed to that either. I can see a need for us to be communicating more regularly, and that's one way we could do it is in a more public and interactive fashion. So we may get to
I
the
think
point
it
where we
should
need more of
be-
these.
I think it should be during the open mic or one of the open mics. That's kind of like how I've been in my, like as a chief delegate, I go on the open mic for anyone who wants to ask me questions. So I think it may make sense to, not every open mic, but maybe we do it like once every other week or something on the open mic.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
We could. I also, I mean, I don't know how heavily trafficked the open mics are right now. It sounded like you implied that the last one, I was on it for a while and then I had to jump off too, but
Well, it'll
I
be
do- I
more
want-
trafficked if we promote that we're all going to be there.
right. And I guess my only concern is that I feel like we should have an open mic where there's no specific agenda of like, you know, talk to the delegates or whatever. And you know, you're suggesting alternating or whatever so that you could have both, but I don't know. I feel like our community as it grows could easily fill out an open mic of just community, not specific agenda, not talk to the chief delegates week after week. But I'm not opposed to like doing like an alternating thing if you guys don't mind. It's effectively like losing one of the open mics to this, because it wouldn't really be a free for all, I don't think.
Yeah, I like the idea of a separate time, but again, should it be on Discord or should it be on YouTube? Because if it goes on YouTube live, then it's there, you know, forever. Whereas on Discord, we have to record it and then awkwardly upload it to YouTube later, won't we?
I think we can connect Discord to YouTube, but I don't know how yet. That is an option maybe to consider. Otherwise, we could use StreamYard and just do it that way and then take questions on YouTube like we'd been doing with the Clarion team. But I don't know. I feel like we just got on Discord, so we should probably like spend a little time there and get people used to hanging out there a little bit more. I'm open. Randall?
Yeah.
I agree.
Any-
Lovejoy.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Cool. Well, who do we contact to make that happen then? How's like creating channels and stuff work in Discord?
Well,
Yeah,
we're
just the
already- I mean,
admins of Discord. It's
Who's
easy.
the admins?
The EOS Nation people and,
yeah,
and the ENF people.
Okay.
I'm in those chats every week as long as I remember, every Monday when we have them. The last week I got screwed up because of the time, but we can easily just jump in the voice chat whenever we want, pretty much. I don't even think we need a special channel, but that does bring up another question: is like, should we start an Eden Discord? Dun dun dun, or should we just keep it in the EOS space?
If we can keep it consolidated, I think that'll be better. But I think there is a difference. Yeah, it's called a stage. So I think what we were talking about before when we're presenting, we're doing like the sort of mic handover. It's called a stage. It's not a channel. So I think that's what we want for that. And then again, if we are going to do the Discord thing, let's also create the private chief delegate channel and the private chief delegate voice chat as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I was just looking at what they have set up now, and it seems like maybe Daniel from EOS Nation might have figured a path out for this. They did a hot sauce live, which I'm assuming they probably learned how to do this on Discord through. Maybe he's a good resource. I gotta reach out to him anyways, but
No, I think Marty's the person.
what is it?
Yeah,
wow.
Marty and Yana.
Marty and Yana, yeah, are the ones that seem to like have all the Discord wizardry at their fingertips. I can bring it up on Monday. Is the meeting on Monday? Or am I?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we figure out how to do that on Monday and then try to do something the following weekend. Or I don't know, I'm open to any of the time, but for some reason weekend sounded like a good idea. Unless you guys want to just enjoy your weekend, that's fine too.
Not opposed to weekends. I think really it's when can we get the most members to attend? Just because this is going to be for the community and for Eden members, as
Yeah,
opposed
true.
to our specific times.
Is this a good reason for a poll? We love polls so much lately.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, that's how the delegate group figured out when we could get the larger elected body together. So
Yeah. Should we use the delegate group to like do it, or
I
should we
think people
actually?
already know about the open mic in that time. It's been like drilled into them a little bit, I feel like.
But you already said attendance has been pretty bad, so maybe we should consider.
It was just a
No,
one-off
but that's-
though. The one before
No,
was
but
quite
that's
good.
what. Yeah,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's why. That's a reason for doing it, because we want to fill that attendance, and I don't think our community is large enough that we shouldn't be there. I think it would help for us to fill that slot every other week.
I'm open to it. And the
Cool. We
current
can always
time-
just do it the once and then gauge the audience during that first one. Say, hey, is there a better time for this? So
Mhm.
my participation in that event will be limited on Mondays because I have developer calls now that start about an hour and a half after the open mic starts. So, and then there's also eating, human needs.
Yeah. What?
I don't know. Sometimes you got to pay attention to those things.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Monday evenings for anything, to be honest. Like, I feel like Monday people are pretty burned out because they just had a weekend, and then it's like how many people die Monday morning. It's like staggering, right? Like, so if you make it through Monday workday, do you then want to jump on a call and have extracurricular activity? I don't know. I mean, I don't even know how many people do regular Monday to Friday 9 to 5 anymore. Forgot, but forget what that's like.
what about Tuesday night, 2200?
What time is UTC is open mic?
2200.
2200. So for
okay.
you, it's 4 p.m.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear what Jesse's saying, and I think it'd be nice to like maybe prime the pump with a open mic, like crash an open mic. But I do think that there's value in having like a dedicated space. So I'm open to both. I don't know what the group really is feeling.
Is a valid point to try to get people drummed up in that one specific time spot. But eventually, hopefully, it'll be like the Monday night thing will have a momentum of its own. And this could potentially have a momentum of its own and not compete. So, and this event could potentially move around to different time zones to hit people in different areas of the world. So, I mean, if we say 2200 next Tuesday, this is what we're going to do, we're only going to get a certain group of people, that's probably like Europe it's going to be really late for them. So we might miss those people and we might need to do a morning some other time. And this seems more of a floating obligation that sometimes could fall on open mic hours. Well, maybe not for me, just because my Monday is gray mass day at this point. That's why I'm trying to front load my week.
How about we do a 24-hour chief delegate marathon where we start from like a filibuster?
We accept donations for charity and play music.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we can have like little
Yeah.
800 number on the bottom of the screen
Yeah.
for people to call in.
Awesome.
Joe.
I'm in. Let's do it. So To start,
Objections? Yeah.
where do we start? Oh, apart from back, I'm reeling it back from the 24-hour marathon because
Right. No,
Um,
does Tuesday at what 2,200 hours? Is that what we said?
Yeah,
2200
2200 UTC Tuesday.
my Tuesdays
Most-
are chill.
Is anybody not able to make that?
I think it's good for me.
Cool.
So
Better
maybe
than Monday.
we,
Yeah, better than Monday, actually. Monday might be screwed for me. So yeah, that sounds good. Tuesday.
well, and then if we're not going to do it on the chief or the open mic night, maybe we should try and reinvigorate the open mic at the same time, so we can drive a little more traffic
Yeah.
there. I'm willing to put some rah behind that. Make sure it's on the calendar. Make sure it's promoted around. I know Jesse, you've been doing a lot of that already.
I tried to jump in for at least a little bit on Mondays. I mean, half hour.
I remember harassing you last Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I had to go because that was the first time I had my Monday night meeting. So, which went until
Cool.
I think 11:30 or something. It was a long one.
Lord. All
Let's do it.
right, so
Anything else?
2200 Tuesday. Is that what we're going for?
I'll make a note in our notes. And then we can bring it up in the moderator chat Monday to confirm that we can do it, which I'm sure we can.
Right. All right. So anyone have any energy left to like talk politics and sentiment and keeping a level head as we navigate these strange waters we're in?
I'm in. I don't know like where to start. There's so much going on every end of like the sentiment spectrum as well. Like there's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of positivity, there's a lot of ambivalent people. It's just on all sides. We have a lot of actors trying to do good things right now. People who view good things as bad. It's where does that entire conversation start at this point? Like between us.
Well, I think we have to dare to be specific, probably.
Yeah.
Broach a few topics. Jesse looks like he's getting fired up.
Well, there was a question on Telegram of what should Eden's stance be for the Block.one ENF Helios negotiation situation. And me personally, I had responded that our stance should be for them to come to a resolution, because if that's the case, then all parties are still contributing to EOS in a way that everyone is satisfied with. And so I'm personally rooting for them to come to a resolution. Everyone holds EOS tokens, and I would like to think that everyone wants the best for EOS. And I do believe that. And I think the best minds will prevail, and we're gonna be great. These things take time, and I have confidence in all the parties to come to an agreement.
I'm trying not to put a foot in my mouth.
It's hard.
Because
It's like a freaking minefield.
it is. I guess my concern is that some of these parties don't have EOS's best interest in mind. That's not their priority. And that's where the core of all of this debate comes from. Some people have responsibilities that are greater than their responsibility to EOS, and that's what causes them to not contribute in ways that we feel that they should. And that feels like the core of every single bit of this ongoing discussion within the community is just who these various groups are responsible to and who they answer to. And I mean, even at a larger scale, I mean, I think we see this in the corporate world as well, is people not doing right by their customers, but instead doing right to their shareholders. And that's a much larger philosophical debate, but it's kind of playing out in EOS right now. And in many senses, in this DPoS world where stake weight matters, we kind of are the customers in a lot of regards and not the shareholders in some of these organizations. So I do agree with what you said, though, is that we need some kind of resolution here. Like, this just needs to, I don't know what the resolution is, but we need some finality. We need something that wins on all fronts. And we need to stop looking at kind of the negative and start looking at all the other positive things that are going on in the ecosystem, because there's a lot to look forward to. EOS is kind of better positioned than it's been in years. Like, since the genesis, maybe the first 6 months of the blockchain launching, we're reapproaching that stage of good, at least from my perception. And if we can maintain that trajectory, it's going to be better than it's ever been. We just need this situation needs to be put to bed in a way that everybody's happy. And I don't know if that's possible, but the powers that be need to try.
Yeah. I think it's worth to, like you both mentioned, community, and I'm wondering how many people, when we read on these Telegram, Twitter, are people who actually own 0 EOS. They're just extra bitter because they've experienced opportunity cost and they've dumped everything they have. They're just pissed off at B1. And so they may be the loudest, and even though they actually have the least amount of stake, but they just have the hardest feelings that are upset. And so we hear them. It's like what Dan mentioned in More Equal Animals, where the media has a way to make the minority look like the majority. And here it's, when I did solar stuff, we would do public, when you're going to launch a project, you do these public meetings, right? And you'd have a community, and all it takes is just 2 people out of a community of 100 to just be like, no, we don't want this because of blah, 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 whatever the reasons are. And even though 2 people actually really give a shit in the negative way, though, it just takes 2. And it just takes 2, and everyone else is like, oh, yeah, okay. And that's it. So it's like they're actually very much a minority, but it ends up being expressed as a perceived majority. So I wonder how much of that's going on here.
Probably to some extent, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, so long as we get finality over, well, we need to end the chapter with Block.one, essentially, or find some kind of conclusion, because it feels like a never-ending chapter with Block.one always hanging on over our heads as to what they're going to do with the funds, or what they're going to do with the network, and if they're actually going to dish anything out on the EOS mainnet. Although one thing I'm naive about is, what happened to the staking pools?
Those, as far as I'm aware, were shot down as not a good solution.
By who?
By pretty much everyone that reviewed them. I mean, there was a phase where Block.one submitted for feedback. We submitted feedback, and our feedback was that, like, this is not good. There are better ways to do it. And I know a lot of other BPs and others that submitted feedbacks were similar. The sentiment was that this could be a good idea, but there's better ways to do it. And then after that feedback went in, nothing else ever happened. So the project just kind of stalled. Nobody took the mantle and ran with it. I think it's something that a lot of people would still really like to see. It's just the way that was built impacted so many other systems and complicated so many other things that it just wasn't worth doing with that proposal.
So with your technical expertise, do you have anything that you would recommend in replacement to it then?
A lot of recommendations I saw, which I think we also echoed in ours, was you should just put the inflation in Rex. Like, we have a system already. where you can stake to Rex and vote for VPs. And right now you get power up fees, name fees, RAM fees, like a bunch of these other system fees. Just put the extra inflation in there and let it handle it. Don't make people withdraw from Rex and put into this new system that has all these new rules and all this other stuff. Just like, let's use what we have and take the path of least resistance to like reward people who essentially lock their tokens. Not lock, but put their tokens into Rex.
If that were the case, then yeah, what does that look like for the whales and their financial incentives then? Because at the moment, like a whale's financially incentivized for just, vote trading, aren't they? You vote for me, I vote for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a broad category, whales in general. I mean, people who are maximizing, and regardless of the size of the account, Rex and voter rewards are kind of the two things that everybody has access to. So I don't know that trading is necessarily a prevalent thing. I'm sure it happens, but it's the purchasing of votes. I think the voter rewards, that is a much more prevalent thing in the system. This doesn't get rid of that at all, or address that at all, or have any opinion of that. But it was a simpler way, and I think I've seen traction in the last couple of weeks, actually. It might have been Todd from the Clarion team had something about changing one of the contracts to redistribute inflation, and it could have gone to Rex, was one of their examples. I don't know what that was for. I barely remember looking through it, but I feel like there's been like little hints of progress happening in the background on potentially a way to make staking rewards a thing.
Right. So I guess regarding the community sentiment about B1, Helios, and what's going on, I think I agree with what Arian said and what Jesse said as well, including Chris, actually. And that at this point in time, there's not much we can do. So the EOS community is basically looking up to someone to at least, say something positive. And we as Eden delegates, we believe that, human governance is a powerful thing. So the first thing is all the EOS community members who feel like they don't have a voice, you can always join Eden. Everything is transparent. We have faith, we have hope that we can better govern the chain. All right. So, and also more importantly, we can better, work together as a team, as humans, right? To get a voice so that we can be at the table in the future somehow to have a discussion when something like this happens. Okay. At this point in time, unfortunately, Eden doesn't have the capacity or the power to be at the table at the moment. I would go as far as to say that we actually under the mercy of the chain, because the chain actually pays us to build these projects that we are building now, and also work as Eden members. So we are all hopeful that at the end of the day we can come up with some sort of a resolution which will make the EOS currency stronger, and the network is going to flourish. So we just have to give it time, and when the dust settles, we just have to learn something from this. And what are we looking to learn? And that to build a community, we cannot leave it to a computer for it to execute everything. We have to have human governance. Because with humanity, sometimes we can negotiate, we can talk to each other, and we can make sense, because the computer just do what the person is telling it. And if one person decides to do something and they choose a decision, sometimes the decision might not be perfect. But if we humans, we reach consensus, a lot of times we're able to better coordinate. So I will highly, highly recommend that all the EOS community members, be part of human governance, which is Eden, so that someday we can all gather together and have a bigger voice so that we can be well represented on the network, which is EOS the network, the currency. But that's just my input. That's my opinion, right? But I think if we do that, someday we will be in a better position where the block producers who are maintaining the network, the EOS Network Foundation representing the block producers, the token holders, which is minority, and the community as a whole, each person will have a representation on the chain. And majority of our back and forth will at least not be as bad as it is today. But I know that overall in the future, maybe in a week or two, we will have a resolution. So I'm very hopeful. So I'm hoping that Eden and EOS community, as it is right now, we are not happy with a couple of things, but when the dust settles, I think we will have a very meaningful solution.
I have a question for Aaron. So I had said that the parties involved have intentions for EOS or good intentions for EOS because they hold EOS. And then you said Block.one does not have good intentions for EOS because of the whole shareholder problem. I understand that.
Very quickly, I didn't say Block.one.
Sure. I'm sorry, you did not say. I'm sorry. You're right.
There are multiples of these potential entities with, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so I want to I wanted to ask
Sure.
About Block.one. I know you didn't talk about Block.one, but I just, and it's not maybe just for you, Aaron, I just see a lot of people worried about this nuclear option, about turning off Block.one's tokens because they don't do anything. And there's a lot of rumors that they're not supporting EOSIO anymore. But at least from my perspective, I see things that are being done, and it's not that they're not doing anything. Maybe they're not doing enough to justify the tokens that they have, but and I'm not going to ask you that question, Aaron, because I know, because you reminded me you weren't talking specifically Block.one, but I'm just now addressing the greater community that, and I'm going to read this tweet from Brock Pierce, that he thinks that Bullish will provide important infrastructure for EOS, infrastructure that other exchanges have obstructed. Exchanges are the liquidity and awareness platforms that are the core to the industry, and we need an ambassador on those fronts. I believe Bullish will provide this. Now, that's positive for EOS. So I think that all parties are doing positive things for EOS. This is just a negotiation on what the amount of tokens that each entity should have for the value that they're providing. I think it's very, very unlikely that either of these entities are going to lose other tokens, this nuclear option, this catastrophic option. I think it's highly unlikely, and I would not worry about that.
Why would it be catastrophic?
Well,
just a loss of faith.
One theory is that, if that happens, then it's going to give many institutional investors and participants in the EOS mainnet very cold feet about the security. I mean, this is a very wavy intent of code as law position, because there was no Ricardian or anything attached to those vesting tokens. It's just kind of like a fuzzy area, and to go against property rights, essentially, to just be like, if possession is 9/10 of the law, and it is as it is now, and then the BPs just want to say, no, we decided you don't deserve that anymore. I think we just disinvited ourselves from a really multi-billion-dollar party. Now,
trillion-dollar party. If we really think about tokenizing
Right.
of assets on blockchain and the true deployment, we're only at 4% uptake of the global capital markets. Less, in fact, it's population. So it's
it's safe to say it's a very non-trivial move that could have like enormous implications beyond what anyone. What comes up for me is in this particular situation is like, I don't know, this is like happened to people in their own personal lives, but it's like Bullish is about to launch to institutional investors next week. And it seems like EOS is going to be featured fairly prominently in Bullish and provide a lot of liquidity, provide exposure that it's been denied for a really long time. And it's like, I don't know how many times in people's lives that they've waited through like all the worst possible conditions only to like have a meltdown and like wipe the table clean like right before the one good thing is about to happen and just be like, take the burn it all down approach. I think I'm personally, in the camp of like, we've waited this long. There's no, I mean, I understand like that the sale to Brock made people feel a little edgy, like, but that's happened already. We can't, what's done is done in that respect. So we might as well wait and see what Bullish brings to the table. Block.one has done some pretty interesting things with regulatory clearance as well. And go ahead, John.
If they're selling the tokens to Brock, then aren't they just cashing out? Like they've already raised 4 billion, and they're going to take, they're going to accept even more money. And again, the tokens were given to them to reinvest in the community into. They said they'll do public voting and everything as well, didn't they? Like they've done so little. So yeah, I don't know. I'll deem it a breach of contract, and it was just a lag point, and communities just caught up and said, yeah, you haven't earned those tokens. And then if there is the proper incentives, we can always remit them if it's in the interest of the BPs. Because again, I don't know, that definitely will be the sort of FUD, because while EOS has always been the sort of meant to be built on intent of coders law, not the crypto community doesn't really get that like overall, and they're still very coders law orientated, so they might not understand that. But again, that's sort of what the identity of EOS was meant to be. And again, narrative wise, I don't know, it can go either ways. It could be a lot of FUD, but it could also, if it was twisted right, it could be the sort of Justin Sun kind of thing where Block.one, big overlord, all that power, got to cash out and be like, no, if you want that amount of EOS, you got to go get it yourself, like you haven't earned it, you got to pay up for it, rather than just let them go further. Like, I don't know, they were already down, and I feel like them liquidating that position, even if it's a sort of over the counter trade, with Brock, I don't know, it feels like kicking us while we're down. But again, there's only so much we can really speculate, given that the talk is private between Eve and Block.one and Brock. So I don't know, we can guess as to what it's really like in the conversation, but we don't know, because again, for all we know, Brock is saying, yeah, we're going to do XYZ, and Block.one's going to do this, Block.one's going to do that. It's going to be a really good selling point. Or again, they have little intentions, but they've always sold us this idea that, oh, we're just around the corner now, just around to the corner to releasing Voice. We're just around the corner to releasing Bullish, like forever, and they still haven't come up with anything. So I'm sick of waiting.
No, and I get that. It's like a psychological, it's a total mindfuck.
It's like an abusive relationship.
I'm not denying the nature of the abusive relationship. I'm just like, they're all intense, like all indications point to something actually about to happen that could benefit EOS. And to me, the transfer of tokens to Pierce and getting them out of the hands of Block.one, although we would all have loved to see that money flow into the hands of the community as opposed to Block.one, it's a positive in the sense that, we've got another actor that could be more aligned with the interests of the EOS community than Block.one, who so far has only demonstrated their ability to be completely hamstrung by regulations by virtue of being a major corporation that has to deal with that sort of shit. So
what's interesting though is that those strings might follow to Brock due to the kind of stipulations that were put on those tokens in the first place. There are a lot of similar echoes between this and the Justin Sun situation. And I am by no means saying that these actors are the same. Like they're completely different actors, and the situation isn't guaranteed to play out the same way by any means. But there's a lot of similarities. This is all that I am trying to drive here, in that they're both had an entity who received tokens in the very beginning of this blockchain that they were essentially given to them to support the network. Like, it is your job to help develop this code and make sure that this network is successful. Both entities at some point were like, nope, I'm done, and sold those assets to another party. Then, from there, we don't know what's going to happen. We have one instance in the past with Steam where that did not play out well and the community did not react well, causing a fork. And the fork was caused by the new buyers' response to the community and how they handled the community. Like that, it was, in the case of Steam, it was Justin Sun's response and his mismanagement of the situation that led to the fork. He did not engage with the block producers. He kind of disregarded the community. He came in with an aura of authority and some arrogance, and it caused the fork.
They treated the community like an object that he could purchase instead of like a collection of individuals that had ambitions. And I don't see a remotely similar thing playing out with.
No, I don't see that happening yet. But anybody who lived through that has seen X, Y, and Z and is now concerned that it could be repeated. And I'm not like, I'm not saying it will happen, but
it's natural human psychology. When you see something, then you expect that a similar or same thing to happen in the future.
Yeah.
It's totally understandable to think that way. But from my perspective, Brock Pierce is a much different individual than Justin Sun.
Much different.
Yeah, his interests are way more aligned with the communities. And the other major, I mean, that's my
we don't know,
but we don't know. But the other huge factor of difference is that, like in the Steam Hive situation, like they didn't have anything like the ENF. They didn't have anything like Eden. They didn't have these other like kind of positive like groundswell from, I mean, like there was kind of a foundation-y element that did exist. There was, like, Luke Stokes and I were both witnesses in this situation, so we saw all of this. We were part of the top 21 block producers as this unfolded. Right.
So yeah, there were some similar elements, and in the end, it did come down to the new owner of this thing and the old owner, who just kind of waved his hands and walked away, versus the block producers, which is very similar to what we see today. This is the block producers reacting to something that they thought was dedicated to improving the network that they operate, being sold to someone else, to a brand new party. Yeah. So good or bad, like, I'm trying to leave all of that kind of subjective opinion out of it. It's that similar, like, this is a very fundamental change. And to kind of come full circle, I'm switching back to what Jesse originally asked. yes, bullish is coming, and yes, Brock is obviously on board with that, and he probably has more insights into what bullish is going to bring to EOS than any of us on this call, because he, up until recently, was a shareholder at Block.one. Like he has insider knowledge there.
And I think it's still a shareholder with bullish, potentially.
Maybe he
No,
said he traded
said he
everything.
wasn't. Yeah,
No,
I thought
he
I
said he
saw a
wasn't?
comment saying he didn't have any shares in bullish. Yeah,
Oh,
that
okay.
might have been
but
the deal.
who knows? Telegram.
Who knows?
I mean, there's so much shit. So yeah,
That
that's what I
comment was
thought I
about
read.
Block.one, I'm pretty sure.
But then there was another one about bullish. I thought someone asked
Oh,
specifically, and
really?
there was a
I
reply.
thought so too.
Again,
It's so hard to keep
Oh,
up.
okay.
who knows? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
the point,
Aaron, sorry to
yeah, the point I was trying to make was just that, like, it's hard to find an unbiased opinion that has knowledge right now. Everyone we're taking opinions from, like the people that say bullish is going to be valuable to EOS, they're biased. They are either invested in some way in its success, or they have some sort of insider knowledge. Like, how many unbiased opinions have you seen that have said, like, yes, bullish is going to help EOS? You can't necessarily find them.
I would argue there's no such thing as an unbiased opinion.
Well, that's semantics.
I mean,
like,
everyone's got some
everyone
sort
does
of
have a bias.
dog in the fight.
Yeah, but maybe bias isn't the right word then. Maybe I'm not finding the proper words to explain this. It's a matter of, yes, of course, Brock's going to say that bullish is going to help EOS. Like, anyone in a leadership position with a vested interest in that is going to say that, regardless of what they like.
But he doesn't have a vested interest.
Oh, well, now that he
I thought
supposedly owns 45 million EOS, I think he sure does.
He does in EOS.
Well,
like the idea of aligning
he-
incentives, it's pretty fair to say that Brock is now, when he said he's all in, I think he, like, figuratively, not financially, I'm sure, but in terms of his energy, I've seen more than one comment that his energy is now focused on EOS. So, and I'm pretty sure his view is that, well, it seems to me his view is likely that this is a mutually assured destruction type of thing if the BPs take and do some sort of action. It's right. Yeah. And he owns EOS. So I guess he's coming at it from, it's bad for his investment in EOS to do that, which is fair. It's bad for my investment in EOS as well.
I guess when
he knows it's not going to happen.
I wouldn't
No
bet
one
on
knows it's not
anything
gonna
that
happen.
way.
I don't know about that. Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. In
I
terms
think he'd
of
be acting a lot differently. Sorry, go ahead, Aaron. Never mind.
When it comes to this whole idea of this being mutually assured destruction, people said this exact same thing about the vault hack whenever that happened earlier this year. Like, they were like, oh, this will be the end of EOS. And nobody reported it. No, it's not. Not at all.
You don't think this is worse?
Not one bit. That was a key change on hundreds of accounts. That were not
public perception.
Maybe
in terms of the nuance of contract actions, maybe not as important, but in terms of public perception, I think this is worse, or highly, or not worse, it's more impactful in terms of public perception.
I think
this is like an unknown.
I don't think anybody
actor.
was happy about the hack, and I think that I'm going to just put a number that 50% of EOS token holders would be happy with this action.
Well, they might be happy in the short term because it's like a big middle finger, but will they be happy in the long term when the buildings fall down around them? Because like
no buildings are going to fall down.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's the bet. You know, it's like a bet,
so
right? Like,
here's a potential scenario. Okay, bullish. B1 gets their keys all changed out. All this freezing. Okay, sorry,
There's
B1.
no keys being changed.
Well, whatever it is, the vested tokens are no longer.
That's important distinction.
Okay, fine. But the vested tokens, I mean, to a layman, to the vested tokens, the ones that are still not liquid tokens. Is that a better way to say it?
They were vested, and for Block.one, they are currently unvested.
Vested. Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
right. Vested tokens. That's what I said. Yeah, the vested tokens. They're not liquid. Those liquid tokens are being removed from B1's ability, potentially going to be removed from B1's ability to have access to. Correct? So maybe not a key change, but certainly an ownership change. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
That's
so what could happen, possibility, is B1 says, okay, fine. Bullish is now going to hash to wax. And
It's
so
big.
is that good for the price of EOS?
It's not
The
a big
hashing-
call. Yeah, hashing doesn't mean
Well,
much. They can hash their
the
own.
hashing
mean
is
anything.
I think it means a lot in terms of sentiment and public perception and what other companies then choose to do with their backend. And
No,
it's just
what's-
the first multi-billion-dollar company to actually rely on an auditability trail on a public blockchain. I don't know who else is doing that. It seems to me
Chris,
that's
would've been
a stepping
worse.
stone to bigger things.
If they took EOS off the EOS token offering
That's
off
what
of the
I'm-
bullish platform.
That's what I'm more worried
Which they
about.
might.
Yeah.
If they move to
So
Wax, they could.
If that
The hashing
happens,
is-
it'll be exactly like it is today. We don't
No.
have bullish today, and the worst case scenario you're presenting is that we don't get bullish.
Right. And look at the
I'm
situation
more
we're in
thinking
now.
I'm just thinking token price, general sentiment and token price. It seems to me that if bullish says, you know what, sorry, EOS public chain, we don't trust you anymore. You're too mutable. And we're going to now rely on Wax. And yes, doesn't mean a big deal. It's only hashes. So what? But in 5 years from now, when there's multiple large
it's
multi-billion
Trading
dollar
pairs.
institutions,
It's not just hashes.
it
trading
means many
pairs.
things.
It's
To me,
liquidity.
just saying it's likely not good for the EOS price, as opposed to the
All-
other alternative where we work this out and we don't do that. That seems to be better for the EOS.
All
but-
of those are promises,
Hold on, but
though,
there's-
that have not been fulfilled.
There is something that we are forgetting. Okay. Now, if Dan decides to build another algorithm more powerful, better than bullish, then what happens? And if he decides to build it,
He doesn't have the liquidity.
Liquidity is kind of a red herring in this situation. Everybody throws this word around, but EOS has the best liquidity out of any EOS IO chain in existence. Like, it's not going to
Yeah,
get
but you
much
need
better.
not
Bitcoin.
saying a
and you
lot,
need other
though.
coins too for an exchange.
Yeah. You know how many exchanges EOS is traded on? EOS does not have a liquidity problem. You can dump millions of dollars in EOS right now without affecting the price. That is all that liquidity provides, is a larger range to allow trading.
so
Liquidity
the
is
reason-
not something we need.
So, Aaron,
It
the
helps hold
reason
up the
why I'm
price.
saying what
That's
I'm
right.
saying is this:
Sure. Yeah.
we have the developers, okay, we have the engineers on our side.
Wait, where?
As it stands right now, right?
Which
We have the
developers? What are you
engineers,
talking
we have the
about?
producers, and we have
You care
Dan,
about you, obviously.
Oh yeah, you have me. I'm here talking, but
right? So my thing is this. I just want us to look at this whole scenario as this. B1 is a big token holder as it stands right now, based on the social
Yeah.
contract that the community gave to them, right? Before. So the whole point is this. We are trying to resolve the fact that they did not contribute as much and they are taking those tokens. That's all that this is. So at the end of the day, if they can even give us little something, okay, the community will move forward. I think that's where we have to focus at, because the developers, including the person who actually developed EOS IO, believe that EOS needs a direction, a different direction. Okay, a direction that is better than the way it is right now. We all agree on that. The only compromise that has to be made right now is how do we, as a community, negotiate with B1 and B1 to negotiate with us so that we can just part ways and get developers working, get the pillars, the 4 pillars to start engineering and building EOS. That's all that this is. Nobody has to get hurt.
here's the thing is that's already started. Like the 4 pillars you just described, everything's already in motion, and regardless of the outcome with Block.one, it's going to continue because the block producers are funding the foundation, which is founding these 4 pillars. Like
But
there's
isn't that an argument for not kicking Block.one to the curb? Because it's like it doesn't matter then where those tokens rest if we're already moving forward with all these great developments. They're already not doing what they're not doing, and we're already
yeah.
doing what we're doing. So why
it all
why
boils
increase the
down
odds?
to the kind of the perception of what those were for. That's like saying, well,
The principle,
that's
the
what,
principle, right?
yeah, it's what it boils down to at its core.
Yeah.
It's if Like, let's say we started a company and we're all going to get a sixth of the company over the next 4 years. And then 2 years in, John quits. And we're having this conversation about how John has stopped contributing to our company. And so we're talking about stopping his vesting of his shares because it was over a 4-year term. And so the conversation equivalent that we're having right now is, well, John's fine. He can just keep earning his shares. Let him quit his job. We'll continue on. Our company will be successful. And it's like, no, that's
it's not equivalent, because it's not, quit is not the right
it
word.
is equivalent. These tokens were vested for a purpose. I was
No,
there
but
at
quit.
Genesis.
I mean, I'm saying quit. You said quit.
Yeah,
correct.
well,
Quit.
Quit by
Okay, so
divesting of
Aaron,
the-
let me ask you a question. So this is a point that EOS Amsterdam, Rhett from EOS Amsterdam made on some interview a while ago. And what is the time frame? What is your expectation of the time frame of B1 fulfilling their promises? So Rhett had said that many people in the community don't have a long enough time frame relative to the size of the institution that we're talking about. 3-4 years is not realistic to expect the things that the community are expecting.
That's not accurate. We could have so much more right now. I mean, so a lot of the justification, and by the way, I have not made a decision on whether this should be frozen, locked, burned, whatever. I am arguing all sides right now because if you haven't figured it out, I love to play devil's advocate, which gets me in a lot of trouble. But so to kind of come back to your question, them developing things like voice and bullish is outside of the scope of what they were granted these tokens for. These tokens were granted by the EOS network to build the EOS.io software to power the network. They weren't given to them so they could go off and build an exchange that features EOS to make them more money. It was to build the public goods that EOS.io needs in order for all EOS.io chains to be successful. Earlier this year, when all of their development talent left, well, I shouldn't say all, they have some on the bullish team, and I don't want to discount the people that have stuck around and moved to it. There are good people still inside Block.one. They stopped working on the public goods. They're no longer developing the public goods that EOS and other EOS.io chains need. That's where their obligation ended. They're not maintaining the software that we all need. They're off using those funds, well, and the ICO funds, which is a completely separate can of worms that we haven't gotten into. They're off building a for-profit enterprise, an exchange that's going to make them absurd amounts of money, in part using the ICO funds and the tokens that the EOS network granted them. They're no longer building public goods. Some public goods may result out of their efforts in seeking profit, but they're not the company that's building public goods anymore. We're having to pick up the slack and do that. If at the beginning, they would have focused on public goods and ran for 3.5 years now, building public goods, we would be in such a good position that we would be running laps around anything else in the industry. Like, it would be absurd if that money was actually allocated to building public goods that could have launched thousands of these chains, but they didn't. And that's the problem. And that's where groups like the block producers come in, and they're pissed about this situation, is because the focus is no longer the public good. The focus is on the bottom line, reporting to shareholders, just driving things that add value. I mean, I have a personal level of frustration with Block.one in this regard. I've tried to engage them countless times on building public goods. I haven't had much success.
Aaron,
I don't know whether it's right or wrong to freeze anything, but I am biased by my experiences. Yes. But
I can't disagree with anything you're saying, is the thing. It's
but
like,
at the end of the day, we just need peaceful.
We do. We really do.
Resolution.
I'm kind of confused about this, them not developing the EOSIO core software anymore. Everyone's saying that they've quit doing that.
Yep.
But I have seen EOSIO 2.1. That was a few months ago, I
Yep.
think.
Do you want to know what's wrong with it?
Sure. I don't know. Yeah, please.
They broke a number of things that producers need to serve things like history. They changed it because they needed it for bullish. They are not changing it back because they need it for bullish. 2.2 is not going to be adopted at all. 2.1 is barely adopted on the network. You'll find most producers still running 2.0. Like, they are doing things that they need, not that the community needs. They're doing things that benefit bullish with like little hints of what the community might need. It's not totally good.
The code fork.
Yeah, if anything, they're forking from us in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why Dan said that we shouldn't upgrade their new, if they made any updates, we shouldn't upgrade to it. But you are right, Aaron. We understand the frustration. There are a lot of pieces moving, but at the end of the day, we just need peace. We have to find a solution, right?
Yeah, but sometimes you got to go to war before you get peace.
Oh, sometimes it's got to get heated.
Go to war, okay? I understand where you're coming from, but I think we are mostly on the same boat in that we believe that we have the technology, we have the developers, we have the engineers, and most importantly, we have Dan, right? And his team.
I don't know that that's most importantly, but I agree it's important.
Yeah, but it's very important. It's very important.
Aaron, what is most important, Aaron?
Community. Community developers stopping its hemorrhaging.
Yes.
No one person is that important.
Yeah.
We would get by if Dan had left us with what he had today.
Hell, BitShares is still chugging along somehow.
Exactly.
I don't know what they're doing, but
so is Steam and Hive. Like they are.
Steam and Hive.
I just checked in with Hive like last week or something, and they're doing some really cool things. They've continued on with what Dan kind of established in the first place, and they've improved upon it.
UA and culture.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
that was one little like I was like, oh.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Randall's. I don't know.
So basically,
who thinks Block.one and the EOS holdings?
What? Are you going to make us vote?
No, we're not going to do that.
Oh no, I'm not voting. I'm just asking, like, who do you think should consider its property, and who's really in the the breach of contract and shouldn't really have those tokens, sort of, Scott?
Contractually speaking, they have not, I don't think, voided any contract. Social contract is the one we're all upset about.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, it's like the Genesis.
We didn't define it.
We didn't define it in Genesis as well as we should have when we were too busy worried about some constitution that we weren't able to even get through. Oh. We failed to define very simple terms in the contract with the parties involved. And
it's worth mentioning this one line from Dan. So this is talking about basically verbal contracts, right? So that's what we have. We have a verbal contract. So Brandon Bloomer promised a bunch of things verbally, and now we're mad about it. It seems pretty clear, right? That's
it was on paper. Like nope,
I didn't see $1 billion VC on paper ever. It was only a verbal thing. And it says under smart contract, all potential liabilities and conditions are explicit. We eliminate a large percentage of economically pointless contracts when everyone knows that a verbal contract is not enforceable and that the courts cannot create implied contracts. This makes everyone more equal and therefore is a critical component of true democracies, which we are representatives of.
Yeah, but if we don't have a platform for intent of code as law, then again we can just use code as law, and then by code of law, BPs can block the funds from Block.one.
But I thought our implementation of intent of code as law was through Ricardian contracts.
What happens when there's an absence of one?
Exactly. We fight a lot.
Then the absence is one. The code is law. BPs decide.
Right. And
but that's a problematic. That's a problematic position also because look at look at our current composition of PPs. I mean, it's like
Yeah, guys, but
it's like
Hey, they voted
it's like
for
giving
ENF.
somebody like ultimate power, and then but then like when you don't like the administration, you're like, oh, wait, never mind, I take it back. I don't want them to have that power. You know, it's like I think Eden is trying to develop the capacity to govern this
Yeah.
sort of thing,
thank you.
but we don't have it currently. And until we do, just saying, yeah, whatever the BPs decide is cool, like, you know, is a little problematic for everybody.
So guys,
But that's what it is in reality today.
But it's also in reality that Block.one had, you know, like free access to like move those tokens however they wanted to.
yes. To me,
Yeah,
at the
so
end
we
of
have
the
free
day,
access to take it off them.
if
Where does it end though?
if Brock has half of the tokens and we all agree that Brock might do something positive with it, we should just let it go. I know under principles, you know, it sucks, right? You don't want this to happen, but I think we are better off just resolving the situation by just moving on and giving Brock the peace of mind, so that we can have the block producers, the ENF, Brock, Eden working together so that we can move forward. We just give them the tokens, because in 10 years,
can't do
20 years,
anything.
we're better off that way.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah,
I think so.
we can only speculate and say what we, you know, what's on our
I'm
wish
just
list,
saying.
but we can't do anything at the moment. But how much did Brock actually pay for the EOS tokens? Do we know?
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't
No
know.
one
He
knows.
traded
So
shares or something.
Yeah.
so if it's an undisclosed amount, for all we know, it's like a, I don't know, 70%, you know, 70 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar. So not only Block.one is sold out, but they're sold out governance powers at a discount on, to a market, participant as well. So
To his credit, though, Brock has always been,
yeah,
through his
but-
proxy, somebody that has voted for BPs using that governance power of people that provide value to the network. So
yeah,
Block.one
I
recently did.
I think he'll do well, but the BPs had to buy their power by market rate. So why should anyone else get a discount on it? Especially when you're that rich. I like in this situation that the multi-millionaire billionaire is getting a discount on you.
John, you're just making stuff up right now.
What do you mean?
You're making that up.
Assumptions.
Well, the assumption, but again, if we don't know the amount, then I'm guessing that there is a
But we know
discount.
that he
Otherwise,
has
why
tokens.
not disclose the market rate and just
No,
say
but we know that
this
he has
is
the
the
tokens,
amount?
though.
So
Right.
He
Brock
only
said
has
that he
some of
traded
them.
them for shares
Yes.
of his shares of B1.
well, yeah,
And
worth
B1 is the
a market value.
B1 is the only participant that could make that deal with him. Like there's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
Brock couldn't go to the open market with his shares and be like, someone give me EOS for these. Like that wouldn't work. So
How do we know that he couldn't have just sold his shares?
did he what?
How do we know he
Couldn't
couldn't have sold his shares?
Well, that's his.
You're
what he
just
said.
taking his words for it.
Well, sorry.
At the end of the day, the man said he has the tokens, okay? And they already transferred, I think, 8 million of it to his account. The
Mhm.
positive way to do this is this. We have to work with Brock. Now the ENF can go to the back and negotiate on behalf of the network. Whatever
Yeah.
transpires, we have to live with it. But the
Yeah.
community has to be positive and we have to move forward. That's the best way. Whatever transpires on the
Agreed.
back end,
Yeah, I agree.
it's okay. Let's work with Brock and let's move forward.
Yeah, I think
And-
another thing that's well said, Randall, and I think it's also interesting to point out that the tokens that Brock has quote unquote acquired. Well, I was going to say quote unquote purchased, but really he's just acquired.
Yeah.
They're like it's like a futures contract because he doesn't actually have access to them, and it's like he's bought a futures on those tokens. So you would
Mhm.
actually pay not necessarily a market rate on a futures contract. So it's actually not that unreasonable to think that he would pay a different rate than market rate.
because
True.
this
Good point.
is getting very messy. And, you know, based on how sometimes things work, you know, you can bite yourself and say that, man, I should have done this, right? But it is what it is at this point in time. But we have a positive way forward. So even though the road is not very clean and it's not the best road of all time, but we can, together as a community, like you said, Aaron, right? Because the community is very powerful. We can clean it up and we can make our way. I really believe in that because the manpower of society is always stronger. But when we allow one person or corporate to dictate, then we together as a community or society, we become very weak because we think that they control us. So if we can really together as a team, right, work on Pamela, work with Brock, work on Eden, recruit the good actors in the community, make some of them, bring some of them onto Eden, we can do a lot of great things, right? And then at the end of it all, if the price of EOS someday hits $100, nobody cares and nobody will remember this, right? But if we're not careful, right, we will say that, okay, let's fight, let's keep fighting. This is not right. And we would damage everything.
I don't agree with that.
I mean, I'm just
there
saying,
is,
Well, the fight has to end at some point, is I think what
does.
Randall's saying.
yes,
It
there,
can't just be like a constant state of conflict about an uncertainty, you know?
yeah, there is no destruction event in any of this that I perceive. If the status quo remains, there are like, look at how many exchanges are in the top 21. I'm not saying that they make good BPs, but there will always be liquidity for this token, and people aren't going to just mass exodus because of any outcome from this event. Some people will leave based, no matter which way this goes. There will be groups of people that leave if it's handled either A or B or C.
But
which
some of
one-
them might
which
have
one's better,
greater
Aaron?
impact on.
which one is better? I think
We
when
don't know.
all parties, right? Because let's say right now, as we stand today, right? B1 decides not to do anything, but still give the tokens to Brock, which Brock already has, right? Because they've made a deal. And they decide that they're not going to give the community anything. And Bullish does not come out. So what? We still move forward.
Yeah, we still move
Right?
forward.
So if Bullish comes out, well, it is what it is. We still move forward. But we don't want to get into a situation where we feel like someone else's token was taken away because the perception, right, was taken away, and this person said this and this person said that. And that's where the drama is. So we have to try to, stay in the middle as much as we can.
It's nice not to have to take anything off the table if possible. That being said, I think, just to be clear on my position, I totally support Eve in playing bad cop here and making any it's like in a negotiation you have to be willing to like take your chips and walk away from the table. And I don't, that's great, that's fine. I'm glad we have somebody that's willing to play that role. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that it doesn't come to that. That's my only position. I hope we can use that leverage, but not actually have to like follow through with that piece, because I do think that would be a less optimal outcome.
To be clear, it is the BPs that are essentially playing bad cop at this point. Eve is representing them,
Right,
but
sure.
he doesn't have the power to make this happen.
Well, he's got sway on both sides, so he's kind of like
He's an intermediary,
he's an intermediary.
Yeah.
He can chill out the BPs or he can fire them up. He can say, he's got a lot of influence in the situation.
And fire with the community members too, right?
Yeah.
I have a question for Aaron. Aaron, do you not see any value in institutional money?
That's kind of a loaded question. Institutional money exists in EOS. I don't see any value in promises of Bullish bringing something fantastic in terms of institutional money. I think that those are talking points to hype up Bullish. And until it is fact and not a promise, I'm not going to count on it, because everything else to date that they have promised has failed.
Sure.
So don't buy into the marketing.
Sure. But would it not be wise to see whether it's going to happen?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we get by rushing to like take any options off the table.
Here's an angle to look at it is, all right, Block.one's got these roughly 65 million tokens, right? Let's say those are worth $300 million. They also have like probably $10 billion worth of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Which do you think they're going to launch and make more money on with Bullish? By bringing institutional money, it's going to be the Bitcoin and Ethereum that they make their money off of and that they bring liquidity in with. It's not going to be this measly 20 million EOS they're talking about. That's just bait to the EOS community. And of course they want to see EOS succeed because EOS is kind of their baby. Like they worked on it for multiple years. I'm not saying that this is a giant malicious corporation, but the reality of the situation is I don't think that institutional money is coming in for EOS.
Not at the moment, but
it might.
We all know which blockchain can actually do the heavy lifting in terms of transactions and throughput.
It is.
And it's
only 3 tokens.
Ethereum.
It's B1's private chains that can do all the heavy lifting.
Sure. Well, but that's that's valuable. And then the hash, hashing to mainnet and setting that precedent.
But we need that hashing technology to even be open source. Like other people need to be able to use that. Where's it at? Why couldn't that have been released beforehand? Why don't we have inter-blockchain communication already? Why don't we have like formalized stable tokens on the network?
Why does Dan repeatedly say we have IBC?
Because there may be fragments of it that exist inside Block.one that have not been released by Block.one.
I mean, as far as I know, he said the code is like, I think he's linked to the GitHub repository a couple times.
It is probably in a branch somewhere, which is like a not primary version of the code that the block producers aren't going to run unless it's been merged into the core code base and then reviewed and tested and whatever. So the code prototypes may exist, but it's probably not in a production ready state from the point of view of the block producers.
Gotcha.
So anyway,
it's just so flippant every time he answers that. People are like, we need IBC. And he's like, we have it already.
I do the same thing. And I think those type of responses come in frustration because people will say something and I'm like, but we have that in Anchor. And they're like, but I don't use Anchor. And it's like, well,
well then
so I get it. I get why he does that.
Yeah.
I have another question for Aaron. Aaron, why is B1 being so unmoving in this negotiation? Why do they not want to give up their tokens? You just said that the reason why they like EOS because it is their baby, but why else?
Do you mean EOS.io or EOS?
Maybe a little bit of both. I mean, maybe EOS is the first child, but like EOS.io is their genetics. I don't know.
EOS is the flagship.
But it's Aaron, all of you, everything that you're saying suggests that B1 would move off of EOS, and yet they are not. So there's a contradiction there.
What do you mean move? I'm not following what you're trying to say here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so you're claiming that B1 has quit, that they don't care about EOS, that they care more about Bitcoin and Ethereum.
That's not what I said.
Okay. So let me rephrase that. I'm not going to claim anything that you've said or haven't said. The question remains, why is B1 not it being so difficult in this negotiation, they don't want to give up any EOS tokens?
I can only speculate, and based on my knowledge of how large corporations work, it's their shareholders and their shareholders wanting to see their bottom line go up instead of down.
But it's so small compared to their other assets.
Yeah, do you think like Jeff Bezos?
Why are
would
they
be happy
flying to go
giving-
see Yves LaRose?
Because I don't know.
Is
the
that
answer
worth
to
the
that.
effort
Maybe?
compared to their bottom line?
I wish I was involved enough to answer that.
Yeah. Why didn't they send
So,
a private jet
okay,
for you, Aaron?
Right?
But okay, can you at least acknowledge that there's a logic hole in this whole thing from what I'm
No,
bringing up?
no. I think there's a logic hole in how you're
But you not being able to answer the
this.
question suggests that there is.
No, that's just me telling you what I don't know. There's logic doesn't apply to what you don't know.
B1's actions do not, in my opinion, B1's actions do not correlate to their treasury or their skin in the game. Their actions and their skin in the game do not match.
I think that
Would
all
you
they're
agree with
doing
that?
No, all they're doing is chasing the bottom line. They have a ton of money and they're chasing more.
They have a
That's
legal
my
obligation
perception.
But
to
it's
do
so
so.
much.
Yes,
it's
they
so
do.
much little
They
bit
do.
more.
Yeah.
Hey, what?
He said they have a legal obligation to. They have that obligation to their shareholders to chase every penny, regardless of how much, like to you as an individual, you're like, holy crap, $100 million or whatever. That's a lot of money. To them, maybe not.
To them,
so
it's a penny.
much.
It's a nickel.
But
And they're
it's
putting all
still
this
their
effort to pennies and
responsibility.
nickels.
Yeah, that's how companies
That-
get
but-
this big.
That doesn't make sense.
I agree, but that's what they do.
Okay, so
yeah,
then
that's a-
you just agreed that there's a logical hole here. It doesn't make
No.
sense for them
No.
to put in this much effort.
he was
Wait,
being.
how much
No,
effort
it's
are you
because of
talking about?
morals.
Because
It's
jumping on a
morality.
private jet is not a lot of effort, is it?
No.
No, he
Like-
was just saying, why did they fly to Eve?
They're
And
dealing with
a
why
lot
are
of
they
BS.
concerned?
Yeah, but
Right
if they're contracted $50 million or whatever is, under threat, and then Eve has already got a relationship with, Brendan and stuff like that, then it's not that hard to drink champagne on a private jet, have a chat, and then go home and then decide, is it like...
You could say the same thing about the engineering team that worked on EOS.io primarily, whether that was either open source or EOS.io for business. I don't remember the number, but they publicly stated how much money that they spent on that initiative. And it was like a really small number. It might have been like 10 million or 50 million or something, but they cut that out too. And that's a smaller amount of money than what they have in tokens. They did that for the same reason that they probably are going after these tokens. This is because it is their responsibility, is a lot, like as much as it doesn't make sense to us, it is their responsibility to make as much money as possible.
We should demand that Block.one restructure as a public benefit corporation.
They
That's
should have
what
been a
I think we should-
not-for-profit.
Yeah.
That would have solved all of this, or something
Seriously.
like that.
Yeah, because they're the bottom line primacy in the situation is a real problem for a community like us,
It's a real problem for the world, I honestly believe.
and a problem for the world. Thank you.
Like corporate greed is a problem, and I think that's
Pathological.
yeah. It feeds itself. It's
Or
a never-ending cycle.
Okay, so one perspective is corporate greed. Another perspective is that there are other things that they're working on to increase their the success of the EOS token. It's one of the two.
Yes.
They're gonna sell all
There's
their
probably
Bitcoin
more.
for EOS. You just wait.
Oh, we're starting
the-
to get into what the gamers would call copium. The element
What
that
is that?
helps you cope with.
You're right. No, they're gonna
nonsense
sell all
going
their
on.
Ethereum for EOS. That's right. That's the
Oh.
ultimate play. I'm
But
just
that's
kidding.
what we
I have
want to
no
do
idea.
here as chief delegates. We want to help people cope with the situation, right? Get people to relax a little bit?
Let us
Oh,
be your
yes.
Isn't that our
coping
goal for this call?
counselors.
I don't know. I guess my self-admitted devil's advocacy kind of goes against that. So I apologize.
Yeah, we went off script. We were supposed to leave everyone feeling warm fuzzies inside.
No, but
Well,
I think that there is a lot of warm and fuzzies, but we still do need to be critical of what's going on and not just accept everything at face value. There is a lot of good things going on in this community right now, with this group being one of them. So much good. That's just one ugly spot that's taking up a lot of the I don't know. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. So there's still a lot of great things going on. And I think over the coming months, we're going to see that unfold. So this one thing, and when you guys are talking and you're like, but this is a catastrophic event. And it's like, I'm trying to say that it's not. No matter what happens here, there's a lot of good stuff going on. And this is going to continue. Eden's going to continue. New projects are going to be coming online, new technologies.
Guys, we have a lot of talent in the EOS community, no matter what happens, and we're gonna be great. We're just going through some pains right now, but we've got the people to get it done, no doubt.
If y'all, this whole conversation makes me think of I'll just leave. This will be my closing remarks, and then I think we should probably all do that and get out of here. But really briefly, you know the story of, it's the Taoist story of good or bad, and I won't give you the full version, but a man's horse runs away, and the townsfolk all say, "Oh no, that's so terrible! Your horse ran away." And he says, "Maybe good, maybe bad." And the next day, that horse returns, and it brings back this wild stallion, this fine, horse from the woods, and all the townsfolk say, "Oh my gosh, what great fortune! Your horse returned with this beautiful wild stallion." And the farmer says, "Well, maybe good, maybe bad." And then the next day, his son is trying to tame the wild stallion, and he's thrown from the horse and he breaks his leg. And the townsfolk say, "Oh no, what terrible fortune! Your son broke his leg." And the farmer says, "Maybe good, maybe bad." And then the next day, the military comes to town. They draft all the able-bodied young men, but his son can't go because he's got a broken leg. And the townsfolk say, "Oh, what great fortune." And he says, "Maybe good, maybe bad." And this just goes on because it highlights the fact that we never really know what is good and what is bad fortune. And there's always a silver lining.